Have you ever seen The Simpsons Season 1, Episode 5, Bart the General? It was written by John Swartzwelder early in the show's run. While the personality of the animated program was still being defined, it does have that unique blend of cynicism and family values that would eventually make The Simpsons The Simpsons. As much as I'd like to say that what you see is what you get, and there isn't much else to the story, that would be a complete and unfathomable, bold faced lie. The very premise of the episode is disconcerting. Bart raising up a military gang to take on a school bully, teaming up with the military antique store owner in the process, whose place also double serves as a gun shop, in order to take out a school bully. But given that the final fight of the episode that you saw was conducted with water balloons rather than machine guns or bazookas, you probably shrugged it off and thought of it as family fun, symbolizing the transition from the fun loving cheese pizza, glam metal, and good times of the American 1980s into the culture of the oncoming grunge era. Boy, were you wrong. How did I get the original episode? Does it really matter? What really matters is what was actually on the episode. Listen, you can ask a million questions and receive a million answers, but let's cut out the speculation and get right down to the chase. There's something far more sinister than school bullies as the primary antagonist of this episode. One might say that the true villain is the heart of man. The opening skit of Father Homer hoping to snag a taste of daughter Lisa's cupcakes out of the oven plays out, but on this occasion, Homer shoves his entire head into the oven and it begins to burn and melt as if it's dribbling melted cheese from a nuclear fallout. Homer doesn't yell, but he certainly does look malaised, as if he just doesn't care anymore. His bald head with the MG hairs symbolizing Matt Groening's initials by his ears rotates like a rotisserie chicken. I have it on good authority that this scene symbolizes Matt Groening's displeasure with the early Simpsons episode's animation and reliance on cartoonish gags that swept the aura and vibes away from his ambitions of a very much believable real life family drama that resembled his own personal problems growing up. Personally, though, I think it represents Matt Groening himself, what he may have done, especially given that in this version, Homer scowls out an off kilter remark about Lisa being willing to wash his feet because she's such a butt kisser. Anyway, Homer and his son Bart fight about the cupcakes as expected. But unlike the episode that made it to TV, Bart licks the icing off of one of them and feeds the rest of the cupcake to Santa's little helper, the Simpsons family dog. The Simpsons family matriarch, the blue hived hairdoed Marge, seems apathetic about Bart potentially poisoning the family dog, while Homer goes on an off topic rant about how birthdays are pagan rituals, that Miss Hoover shouldn't participate in self worship about her own birthday as if she's some sort of god or goddess. There's a rustling of leaves outside the open kitchen window. The family ignores the sound and continues arguing about the cupcakes. When Bart gets on the bus, Otto the bus driver is rambling about Springfield Elementary Principal Seymour Skinner. Apparently, he was a child of Jewish immigrants, one of whom was a groundskeeper and a gardener who had some sort of shady connection with the school's groundskeeper Willie that reeked of a criminal underground. Perhaps mafioso affairs. Hmm. The episode doesn't divulge. The scene in which Lisa taunts Bart about the cupcakes and contrives him into apologizing for name calling her is missing, and the animation is jerky and jumping. It's streamlined straight into the part in which Lisa says, Well, open your mouth and close your eyes, and you will get a big surprise. It happens lightning fast, but to my absolute astonishment, Lisa pulls out a sledgehammer. Nothing cartoonish or super realistic or anything, but drawn in specifically the then typical Simpsons animation style. And she starts smashing Bart in the head with it while his eyes are closed. Uh, and in this scene, Bart never opens up his eyes again. The screen shakes and spasms about with a black and red filter. Then there's a zoom in of a blue and white striped building on what appears to be a tropical island, shrouded with palm trees. A flag of the United States Virgin Islands flashes on screen, along with a brief animation of the unimaginably greedy Springfield nuclear power plant tycoon C. Montgomery Burns, who stands next to his life size taxidermy bear and declares to himself that the bear's name is Stearns and that he himself is the Wolf of Wall Street. Mr. Burns laughs, takes a slow and calculated sip from a cup of tea, and chortles to himself sardonically. Was he mocking the bear, the viewer, or some third person who we don't get to see on screen? I truly have no idea. There did appear to be some sort of chains or cuffs attached to his office table, but it might have just been low quality animation. The part where school bully Nelson Muntz causes trouble over the cupcakes, and MacGuffin in the actual episode, is replaced with Nelson warning the Simpson children about an alleged bounty hunter who is, as of this point, unidentified. Some images of palm trees, this time swaying in the wind, the Eiffel Tower, and a rocky desert flash on screen. I later learned via Google Lens inspections that those were pictures of Palm Beach, Paris, and New Mexico, respectively. There's no music or comedic timing concerning any of it, though. It's as if the episode was trying to tell us something, but it wasn't allowed to say it directly. But why? Bart and Nelson get into the fight that results in Nelson's nose accidentally bleeding. A slightly overweight child with freckles and a rather obvious, if not contrived, smile is seen watching the two engage in slapstick comedy battle and smirks, seemingly admiring the tension between the two boys. His hair is neatly brushed to the side. I don't know how else to explain this, but something just doesn't seem quite right. Hmm. Bart's dream with the giant Nelson and the crate full of knives remains intact. And given how eerie this scene was to begin with, I can't say that my previous familiarity with it made watching this version of the episode any more comforting. If anything, the extra content made it that much more disturbing. There are some key differences, though. Half hidden cameras obscured by houseplants, and Nelson blackmailing Bart, claiming to have dirt on powerful people, and that what he knew went well beyond Springfield and Shelbyville. Given that this was Bart's dream, I assume that was reflective of Bart's mental state somehow. If you didn't already know, Bart Simpson is supposed to be a projection of show creator Matt Groening as a child. This was Matt Groening's mental state as a child. I don't have much to add about the Bart's funeral scene, other than that it's real. It's in the episode you saw, so you should already know that. It isn't some tall tale made up by an amateur hack author who got more publicity than they deserved on some wiki in the early 2010s. Ugh. Yes, Bart still has the rather creepy cartoon X's in his eyes, and again, it's already in the standard episode, and you could easily go watch it right now if you actually wanted to. Ugh. The part at the end of the scene in which Nelson punches Bart's corpse plays out. To my shock and displeasure, a rather wet squishing sound is heard as Nelson's punches land, as if the already deceased Bart's heart and some other organs rupture. There's no visual evidence of it, thankfully, because the scene quickly transitions away. Nelson says something under his breath in his usual gruff tone, and I couldn't make it out at first and had to record the audio, slow it down, and play it back via Audacity. But he clearly says, and I quote, "An anomaly of the heart of man." I remember doing a bunch of Googling, which eventually led me to a condition called Eb- Epstein's anomaly, which causes blood to leak into the upper chamber of the hearts of developing children. In the context of a standard Simpsons episode, none of this really added up. If Bart the General was about Nelson the Bully warning the two older Simpsons children about a bounty hunter, then why does Bart still have a nightmare about being presumably murdered by Nelson and him desecrating his corpse in front of his family and best friend Milhouse? Furthermore, why do the scenes of Bart getting beaten up by Nelson and tossed into a garbage can play out, with him coughing up his baseball hat, which Nelson presumably forced him to swallow? And there's the exchange between Homer and Marge about how to handle the conflict with Nelson, either by fighting back or making peace. Homer's and Marge's perspectives, respectively, continuing to appear in the episode. If Nelson's a foe, then why the warning? If Nelson's a friend, then why the beatings? It simply didn't make any sense. For several years I'd given up and concluded that I'd witnessed a hoax with some minor edits made to it, added to the episode as a college prank by some lonely internet forum poster. It wasn't until I received an ominous call one day that I, yet again, changed my mind. It was a 15-minute phone call. My caller ID immediately lost the log of it following the call, and I have a habit of recording my phone calls without notifying the other party that I'm doing it. But the call didn't record itself for some reason. What I can tell you is it was a female voice. The call came in from Belarus, and she claimed she would be my dentist. I'm not going to lie, I haven't visited the dentist in about 17 years, though at the time of that call, it was more like 7 or 8. Also, how would she know she would one day become my dentist? That's for me to decide if I ever do. Watch the part with Homer's hair again, she calmly insisted, and then she hung up the phone. Instant dial tone. I don't believe in paranormal entities or mystic stuff like that, but I did it. Pop back in the film reel for the first time in ever so many years. Still played with zero skips, the film in pristine quality and condition. And then the oven. The MG hairs. The cupcake. It was etched into the frosting, the top part of one of Lisa's cupcakes, intended for the birthday party of her school teacher, Miss Hoover. Oh, man. There was a sketch drawing outline of a man in a jet having his feet washed by a little girl.